All right, we'll go ahead and get started. It looks like it's about time for this particular talk. So afternoon, thank you everyone for joining this afternoon's thought leadership discussion. It will be led by Charlie Cross, who is the head of um, remote vehicle management at Stellantis. And he's going to talk to us today about the ultimate vehicle experience today, tomorrow, and beyond. So, Charlie, I'm going to hand it over to you and take us into the discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. And I'm a software developer with Stellantis, and we have a team called Remote Vehicle Management. And a lot of you might, well, what is that? My team, what we primarily do, we build an application for Stellantis that's responsible for every bit and byte and bundle of connected vehicle data that goes from our vehicle to our cloud. And so everything flows through our systems. And we've built this application in-house over the last few years. So why don't we just call the team data collection? And that's probably an interesting question, but what we learned and what you'll see today a little bit of is we're able to exploit that capability to extend it into a lot of different features and services. And if you're thinking just about data collection, raw data collection, and just the pure aspects of pulling data off your vehicle, you're missing the boat. There's so much more that you need to be able to think about and do about building these dynamic vehicle experiences with that data. Not only pulling it to the cloud, but actually doing logic on board and pushing that logic to the vehicle from the cloud. And we'll show you some examples of that today. So a little bit about Stellantis. I think everyone knows Stellantis now. It's a two-year-old experiment. It's going well. It's going well so far. Financials are good. And we are seeing a good improvement year over year. 2022 has been an improvement over 21, which was a significant improvement over the prior year. And one of the things that core to our DNA is really diversity of product and people. 14 brands, very large and broad price ranges in those brands, and geographically dispersed throughout the world. So so far so good with the Stellantis experiment, and it's going well to bring all these different perspectives together into this fiery creativity of the company. So. And that applies now also to our tech journey. And you'll hear every OEM say this, right? We're going to transition to a tech mobility company. We're starting this journey. We're starting this transition. Well, we are well into this transition. We are almost, I would say, farther along than many in this tech transition. And these targets that we set out several years ago in our Software Day presentation we're moving very rapidly towards those goals. And I can say, being with the company for 18 years now, I don't recognize the company that I started in a good way. I see a tech company emerging from an OEM, so that's very exciting to see. And that's driven by the same things we always know, and you've probably heard 1,000 times: autonomy, connectivity, electrification, shared mobility. All of these things driving OEMs to push into this tech space. And one of the things that I really like to focus on, and what our team really focuses on, is this potential that we have with the compute capacity of millions of embedded vehicles on the road, all that compute power that's distributed throughout our car park, and really tapping into that compute capacity that's there at the edge. The other way, we also like to flip it around on the other side. You got to start thinking of every car as having infinite compute capacity, because we're all in the business of connectivity and connected vehicles. Now we can infinitely expand. Wow, this is a full house. Very nice. There's a few chairs up here too if you need to sit down. Some of you are standing, and I feel this is fantastic. All right, so you got to think of the vehicle, right? It has this infinite capacity now, because the cloud has logically infinite capacity, right? And so now all of these compute constraints, all of these hardware constraints that you had, right, kind of go away when you start exploiting that infinite capacity in the cloud. And you can start building really dynamic and engaging features for your customers. And we talk about features, right? A lot of people focus on features, and I'll say the 90s OEM mindset, right? The old school mindset is, let's list our features. Let's write specs for those features. Let's decide what those features do end to end. And my team doesn't think in terms of features. We don't build features in my team. We build capabilities. And we want to think of our car as a platform of capabilities. And these capabilities then provide these bricks, technology bricks that you can assemble. And you being a product manager, a non-software engineer, right? You'll hear a lot about low-code, no-code platforms here at the conference this week and everywhere you go. Some of you are building these types of platforms. We're doing the same thing, right? We want to build these platforms that you do not have to have a deep software engineering background to assemble features with. And using all of these different capabilities and hooks, we are going to glue those things together and have product teams and eventually customers build their own features. And that's driven by, a rapid expansion of our car park, right? So 12 million connected cars today, 34 million by 2030. And it's about not only just every car being connected, but every car being hyper connected, and really every single vehicle constantly interacting with the cloud, constantly changing its behavior on the fly. And you'll see examples of how we're doing that on the road today and millions of our cars today. But really then also extending that to our customers and giving them the ability to customize it even further than anything that we can come up with. And really, cars being not connected now is a corner case, I think, and is where we sit today. So you really have to start thinking about connectivity features as the forefront. Everything starts with a connected service, and then you build the non-connected experience around it as a corner case, really. So let's transition a little bit. Let's talk about real stuff here. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about what my team's working on and expose some of that to you guys. But before I do that, I kind of have to tell the beginning of the story. And it really started several years ago when I found a small team of software developers who had no business of doing what they were doing, building software inside the OEM. And as OEM, we had the very traditional mindset. Now this is formerly Fiat Chrysler, of we were a supplier integrator. We didn't write our own connected vehicle software. We wrote specs, and we integrated those specs from our suppliers. And we sort of changed that mindset by starting to build some of our own applications using good platforms. Some of the platforms you guys are seeing this week today, we're definitely using, and building our own IP around that. And we started out with a very simple use case, helping to track our internal test fleets. These are the manufacturer M-plated vehicles. We were on 900 vehicles, and we found this app and this very small team, and we said, wow, this is a really great app. It's similar to something you'd see like FleetWise or other services that you probably heard about, where we can now dynamically collect data. We don't have to statically code all of the decisions. We put all those decisions in our cloud, and then we download those instructions to the vehicle dynamically, and it changes its behavior on the fly. So we created this system almost 10 years ago. And then by taking that system, the product team said, oh, this is fantastic. Let's go give it to a supplier to go build for us now. And so we said, well, hang on a second. Why don't we just build it in-house and own our IP? And there we land today at, this slide is outdated, 7 million connected vehicles running this platform, and we're collecting 5 trillion data points per year. That number is also outdated. I think we are approaching 6 trillion. Massive data collection and scale in a fairly short amount of time. And by the end of it, hopefully I'll be back here in a few years saying we're on 30 million connected vehicles. I have no idea how many trillions of data points that will be at that point, but I don't know if I can count that high, but we'll find out. And so what's going to happen here too is not only are we going to be collecting data, but you're going to start seeing services being configured by our customers. And I'll show you some examples of that. But let's talk a little bit about what we've done with this platform. A lot of you have seen EVOS. EVOS is an emergency vehicle alert system. And this is a system that, partnering with Haas Alert, we're actually tracking our customer vehicles, tracking emergency vehicles, and we're notifying our customer. right? And saying, hey, we're including sound, we're going to eventually include haptics and other types of multimodal experiences when we have newer technology in the vehicle, and we're going to actually alert our customers. When we were building this feature, actually we were collecting location very rapidly, and we quickly realized we were going to bankrupt the company if we collected every single vehicle's locations every few seconds. So we actually configured the system to dynamically scale how frequently it asks for the vehicle's location, and actually geofencing the emergency vehicles. We were able to turn things on and off at different speeds. The thing that a lot of people don't understand about this feature that they don't know about is, I tell people, how many lines of code did I write at on the Stellantis side to launch this feature? And I ask people to guess. And some people call a couple thousand, this or that. It's 0 lines of code. I wrote 0 lines of code. My team wrote 0 lines of code. The entire thing is being built by extending and configuring our connected vehicle platform and our application. So this is really cool stuff because now we can build a feature, we can configure and test it in a matter of months, and we can bring it to market. And that's why, as an OEM, we're able to move fast on some of these things. Here's another example. You're a customer. You're on the side of the road. You're driving your car on the side of the road. It's a dangerous situation if your car breaks down and you're on the side of the road. You could be on a freeway, it could be icy, it could be dangerous conditions. Maybe you have to change a flat tire. So this is an unsafe situation for our customers, and we want to help. You put your hazards on, but maybe people are numb to that constant blinking. They see that all over the place. What if we could change the light pattern a little bit? Catch the customer's attention. What if we could detect that the customer was at the side of the road and then facilitate resolving that problem for them? Hey, we know you have a flat tire. We know you're on the side of the road. We know you have a problem. You turned your hazards on. So we know all of these things. And we're not collecting this all the time and sending it to the cloud. We're collecting it on the vehicle, and we're writing logic and conditions and configuring those conditions and then taking action on them and then helping the customer workflow through a problem and solving that problem. So this is something actually we're working on. Again, this isn't something you'll see on the roads yet, but it's something that we're testing and looking at and exploring with our partners. So very cool stuff. And so that inspired me. And a year ago, I went to my team and I said, a lot of our connected services fit into this kind of common condition and action pattern. And if you really look at, if this happens, then do something. Notify a customer. Notify something. If I breach a geofence, send an alert. If somebody sets the car alarm off, send a notification. All of these different things. But the customer can't really personalize them that much unless you write a lot of logic to let them do that. So, for example, emergency calling. Emergency calling's been around for forever. It hasn't really evolved much since then. We've automated it so we can detect a crash and then we can automatically place the call. But if your teenager is driving a car and they're in an accident, wouldn't you want to immediately know that? What if they can't call you? Right? It's great that the emergency call gets played, but wouldn't it be great if you knew? And then you could get on the road and help. So now let's figure out how to solve that problem. Well, how do we get the customer to personalize that? So if these things happen, now I want to be notified. And we came up with this concept called Moonbase. And if you know Stellantis, if you've worked with Stellantis, Stellantis means we're to brighten with stars. So it's all about stars and outer space, and there's all these space-themed things in our products. And I said, well, we got to have a space theme for our project. So we internally coded this project. We call it Moonbase. And if you think, why do you call it Moonbase? Because it's easier to launch a rocket from a moon base than from the Earth, from the surface of the Earth. So it's easier to launch a feature from this platform than it would be to build that feature from the ground up, right? So we're trying to build that platform. And if you've used IFTTT, if you've used Samsung Smart Things or Smart Home Automation, you'll see a lot of OEMs moving to these recipe building capabilities in these platforms, and we're not any different. Let's talk about some examples. Jeep owners, Wrangler owners, you want to take your top off. You don't want to do that, though, if it's going to rain in 2 days, because then you got to go and you got to put the bolts back on and everything else. Maybe you want to take the doors off, too. So, common use case. So our customers, they're checking the weather, right? And they're looking at it. Well, guess what? We know the weather. We know where your car is, right? So now we can nudge you as a customer and say, hey, this next 4 days, great weather. Let's nudge the customer along to engage with our product in the way we want them to. We want them to take the doors off and the roof off. So let's invite them to do so, and let's give them that. And a product owner, someone who has zero coding experience, can build that feature and put it on every Wrangler instantly in a couple of weeks. Here's another one. You got an electric vehicle, you charge it, plug-in hybrid or a BEV, and most of our customers, we know, charge their vehicles at home or at the office if they have a charging station at the office. Very rarely are you out at running an errand and you're finding a charging station, mostly because you don't know that they're there. What if we could nudge our customers along and say, hey, we know your battery state of charge, we know your vehicle location, and we know where the charging stations are, and we know if they're available. Let's key that together, and let's give you an invitation. Drive another block down the road, charge, plug in. So we can nudge the customer along to engage in our products better, right? And use the products the way they want to use them, just with a little bit of help by pulling the data that we have together and giving it to them, right? And so there's a million recipes here. So now the feature set, the 1990s list of features that are launching on your vehicle went from 20 features to infinite, just like that, right? So we have this platform that we just have the building blocks, and we let people define their recipes and personalize them to whatever they want. And that's going to create an incredibly engaging experience with connectivity for our customers. All right, I got to switch to a little bit in the vehicle. It's not the space that I live in, and this video might not be running right. Let me see if I can get it running. All right. There we go. Well, it's running on my local. I don't know why it's not running here. But you can see a little bit of this vehicle, right? This is a concept, but this is very sci-fi. You know, you look at this stuff and you see a lot of OEMs do this. You go to CES, you see this stuff. It's very science fiction-y. This is closer to reality than you think. This sort of heads-up display and stuff, this is not something you're going to see with CarPlay, right? This is stuff that the OEM can provide, and with the right partners also can help provide this type of experience with a lot more engaging than most. And I'm really excited to see some of this stuff because we have a very interesting challenge in the industry to engage with our younger buyers, right? A lot of newer generation buyers aren't as interested in driving vehicles as the older generations. And this kind of gamification of the driving experience and the gamification of safe driving is really exciting to me. I think we can engage newer customers with this really high-tech stuff. I mean, it looks like a video game almost, some of this stuff. And you can really add and enrich the driving experience with some of these heads-up display models. And so when we talk about our smart cockpit strategy, you can read all about it anywhere, but I want to emphasize the key point of our smart cockpit strategy in the context of connectivity is about being cloud first. And you know, back 10, 15 years ago, you always heard about mobile first strategy. If I'm a tech company, I'm building my mobile app, and then I'm building my whole experience around my mobile app. Well, in a cockpit context, you need to think about cloud first. Your feature is built in the cloud first. Your intelligence, your logic is all born in the cloud. The vehicle and the onboard systems and the embedded code that ships with the vehicle should be very, very stupid. And all of that intelligence should be built into configurable systems and cloud systems. And then really, like I said before, the vehicle not being connected is a corner case. So you have fallback logic that tells you what to do in a default situation, but all that real intelligent dynamism in the system is really driven from the cloud, so that you can really change how the behavior of the vehicle, how the experience is playing out for that customer, point to point, instead of statically coding these things. And that's really what we're doing with the smart cockpit. And then finally, and I will make sure that I make some time here for questions. So I just have one more slide for all of you. I want to extend this to everyone else. And so what we've done in Stellantis is we're actually building a developer portal, developer hub, and we're in a closed beta right now. We're working with a few key partners to integrate our SDKs, our APIs with these partners. But what we'll hope to see is soon we'll let startup companies and third parties and all of you working in the industry to hook into our APIs and extend our systems into ways that we never thought possible or what we could do. You can front end other OEM systems and federate them with Stellantis systems, so you could build OEM agnostic solutions and stuff like that. That I think will be something that's desired in the industry. So we're looking to build this portal. We have a starting point, and we're extending it and bringing on. It's a kind of an invite only at this point, but coming soon we'll hopefully have this opened up for everyone to play with, have simulated vehicles, and everything else. So that's really exciting for me. And I just have one more, if I can get this to play. Hopefully, we'll see if we can get it to play. This is sort of the stuff we did with our data collection app. So and this is a 2018 Challenger, right? So this is not a new vehicle. I mean, we are individually controlling lights. We are honking the horn. We're turning on the hazards. We're rolling or unlocking the door. Everybody can do that, but we're controlling windows. We're controlling the HVAC. We're honking the horn. I turn the sound down. You can't hear it. Control the wiper blades. This is a data collector, guys. So we've obviously extended the use cases a little bit. And what's compelling about this is we did not write code. I keep saying that we didn't write any code to do this. The platform did it for us, and we're exploiting existing capabilities and services in the vehicle to build these features. And so now every button, every single HMI element in the vehicle, that if it exists in the vehicle, we want to be able to control that from the cloud, because we don't know what types of features we want to build with that later. We're coming up with those ideas every time. So you think about every single piece, every single element in the vehicle, make sure that you can actuate that from the cloud, and then you can quickly build really compelling experiences for their customers. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll take some questions if you guys have any.
So if you're processing all of the intelligence in the cloud, does the latency become an issue at some point?
The intelligence in the cloud doesn't mean the logic's in the cloud. You're building that logic in configurations in the cloud, and you can push it dynamically to the vehicle. So you can still execute on the local runtime. I'll give you a simple example, geofencing, right? You want to know when a vehicle breaches a geofence. Maybe you want to do a toll booth use case or something like that. You wouldn't send those coordinates to the cloud and process the geofence in the cloud. You'd actually push the geofence to the vehicle. But the intelligence behind that is built in the cloud. And then the vehicle is just this kind of dumb engine that's accepting instructions and waiting for new instructions. Yeah. James.
My question, Charlie, is this really super cool thing about allowing customers to sort of, in IFTT style, is essentially create their own services.
Yep.
Are you going to monetize that in some way, or do you know?
I mean, you monetize it. I'm not the product guy, but if you monetize it by creating that stickiness, right, with your subscription packages, right? So now it's like, hey, you have this ability to completely personalize and build whatever features you want, and then that creates stickiness to your subscription, and that's the mindset here. And I think there's a stair step here. I jumped very quickly to the customer building these things. I think the step in between that is having product teams really building them, right? And just building these like internally sanctioned recipes that we want all of our customers to have. And then we'll get to that point. I think the 2030 vision is, the customers just building their own connected vehicle features, and we have no idea what they're doing, but we know that they like it, and we know that they're willing to pay for it, right? Yeah.
Hi, I have a question, kind of building on the question that you asked. So as you build this platform, right, you kind of assuming every vehicle is connected, and it's connected using connectivity technologies that were defined by 5G or something. But as you build this platform, do you see a need where the connectivity needs are higher, that the automotive use case is actually, requiring something more than what the, what 5G supports, 6G supports.
Well, I'm there right now, but I think 5G is the right start. I don't see a step below 5G. I think we're not pushing that envelope quite yet in terms of the threshold. I think the bottleneck isn't the network. I think the bottleneck is still in some cases the vehicle hardware. And the reason why is, as OEMs, you want to really control your costs, right, and your hardware costs. So you're really trying to simplify that hardware cost. As you shift compute to the cloud, right, now then you might see that trend, right, where you start to, the new bottleneck becomes the network, but we haven't hit that yet. Dr. Hunt.
Thanks. Isn't that the whole purpose of being able to do things in the car, that you can reduce the amount of data you have to send?
It is. So that's the eternal battle in the OEM, right? Is we want that capacity on the vehicle, but we also want to make sure we're changing how we interact with the vehicle's data. And I think one of the things, and I know this isn't a technical track, but one of the things that we're looking at is shifting from like traditional CAN broadcast abstraction to more using diagnostic interfaces, right, in the request response model. Because now, if I can go and say I have a computer that's listening to these 300 CAN messages, and now I want to add 100 more, I'm now starting to overload that computer. But if I have a diagnostic interface, I can just ask questions, and I have 100,000 different questions I can ask, and I get 100,000 different responses. So we're finding different ways to reduce the load on the device by changing how we interact with the different ECUs on board, and taking less, I'll say less traditional approaches than what OEMs have done in the past. So, sure.
Another question. So, from user experience perspective, other than EV charging, is there anything unique from the smart cockpit or Stella brain perspective that you're bringing in EV that's not going to be in the ICE vehicles?
I think generally the what EV does for us. I'll speak in terms of connectivity, right? Because that's really my domain. I'm not living and breathing all the smart cockpit elements, but from a connected vehicle standpoint, EVs give you this opportunity to have a more persistent connection. We have an MQTT connection persistent with the vehicle today, but now with the EV, the vehicle plugged in, you have more opportunities to wake the whole CAN network up and to harvest data from the vehicle and provide services based on that. Whereas with a gas engine, you gotta fire it up, turn it on, run the engine, and you can't always do that. You might be in a garage. You might be somewhere where you don't want to run the engine. So I think there's opportunities to exploit as you shift to more EVs, to now building features around, assuming you can wake up that CAN network whenever you want. And now do more interesting things for the customer when the vehicle is off and when they're not in the vehicle than you used to be able to. For example, just doing things like scheduling operations or scheduling charging, or just doing simple things like finding locations of vehicles when the vehicle's not running. These types of things are useful. We have a lot of stolen vehicles in our industry. You don't turn the car on when you steal a vehicle. You put it on a flatbed, right? So if you can track that vehicle even though it's not being turned on, ignition on, and connecting, you can actually wake it up, and you can actually track it and recover it for the customer. So stuff like that, I think we're going to start seeing more use cases where we've built a lot of our system around the gas engine running and churning along, and now we kind of are liberated from that with the EVs. Yeah.
Thank you.
How do you integrate with mobile sites with this stuff?
Sorry?
Mobile sites.
Mobilisites. Yeah, Mobilisites is my primary, is our primary, one of our primary internal customers, I guess I would say. Mobilisites is, for those of you who aren't familiar, is a Stellantis data business unit, and they are building data products for our fleet customers as well as B2B customers. Every bundle we collect is something that could be converted as a data product from Mobilisites. So we're closely partnered with them, and I would see them as one of our main internal customers. Yeah.
So what are you doing to prevent
in terms of injecting malicious code into the vehicle from the cloud. Yeah, I mean, this is a constant battle, all right, of making sure that are we secure enough, right? Because giving your vehicle this type of capability and power creates a vector for attackers. You have to apply a lot of the best practices that are given and built into the platforms you're given. So I don't think as an OEM we are coding down to the bare metal. We're using platforms. A lot of the platforms you guys are seeing today, we're partnered with several of the key people that are here in the room today, building those platforms and leveraging their security. I will say, when you start pushing configurations down to the vehicle, I mean, you have to make sure that configuration came from the cloud and it came from your cloud, for starters, right? And you do that through standard things like digital signatures and hashing, right, to make sure that you have non-repudiation of where that came from and what it's telling you to do, and that we intended it to do that. So now an attacker who can have access to a vehicle can't sideload this in. But then other than that, it's just kind of standard, pen testing and stuff. I have an interesting team. A lot of OEMs centralize cybersecurity functions, and we're not any different. But I actually have cybersecurity roles on my team because of the sensitivity of this. I have to protect the customer's data, right? I have to, or else it's game over for me. So we've built cybersecurity into our process. My head cloud architect is not well, he's a software engineer for sure, but he's actually a cybersecurity professional. So he's really building all of that up with that context in mind. And so I brought the right, I think, talent into the team to build security into the system as we build it. So I'm pretty confident in where we're at and in terms of protecting ourselves and our customers from those attackers.
Last one, how do you deal with user privacy? Because a lot of these features require information of users in terms of location, speed, and all that.
No consent, no data collection. It's that simple. Consent is very broad in it's right now. We're getting more granular with that consent, but no consent, no data collection. It's that simple. The customer, I treat, legally, the lawyers could argue with me if they were here. I treat the data as if the customer owns it, and they're giving me the privilege to use it to bring value to them. And with that mindset, we don't collect data without the customer's consent. Period. No exceptions. Okay, I think I got the wrap it up music, even though it wasn't playing. So I'm gonna go. But thank you all for the great questions. Take care.